It's really wonderful to see. I love listening to the raucous laughter and everybody. It's just the kids involved, and it's wonderful. And your next new minister is going to love that. I can tell you right now. Does anybody need to know why I'm here before I start talking? Do you all feel comfortable with that? I just want to make sure that if you have any questions about how come I'm here, that you can certainly ask. And if it comes to you 5 minutes from now, don't worry about raising your hand. I'm sure that many of you have questions. I'm going to try to get, hopefully, what I'm going to say in the next hour is going to answer most of those questions, but feel free to, ask any question that helps you become much more comfortable with what's going to be happening here in the next year and a half. I'm going to do a very short reading to start this off. The health and vitality of our congregations depends in part on a good fit between a congregation and their minister. The UUA helps connect ministers searching for positions with congregations who want to find a minister. So that second sentence is pretty, simple, right? The UUA helps ministers looking for a new congregation and congregations who are looking for a new minister. But the most important part of that two-sentence reading is the fit part. The fit. And we don't want you to have a next settled minister who isn't a good fit. We want to make sure that through this search process, the information that you, the congregation, give to the search committee gets written down, gets expressed in several different ways that we'll talk about. And so that the ministers that are looking at this information say, I know that church, I like that church, I have the skills to take that church where it wants to go, I can handle it now, I have the skills to handle it now, I have the skills to handle it in 5 years, right? We want to make sure there's a good fit. And that's a word that I'm going to come back to a lot of times. It's something that is important to think about. So what's going on in terms of other congregations this year that are looking for new ministers? Are you guys the only one? No. It'd be nice if, if you were, right? And all of the Unitarian ministers that are looking for a job could say, oh my God, I'm going to go to Creighton. That's not what's going to happen. Right now, as of last night, there were 29 congregations in search during the same time frame that you guys are in search. And in addition to you, 7 of those congregations are in this area of the country. So ministers that want to live on the East Coast are going to be at least looking at those 7. Many ministers just look nationwide, right? They're looking for a congregation of kind of a certain size because that tells them what the job is going to be like, right? A congregation of 500 to 700 has a very different job in store for the minister than a congregation of 100 or less. And so most ministers are looking at, geographical distribution, size of congregation, and then they go into looking at who you are and what your personality is and, what your values are, how you're unique in terms of being a congregation. Of the other 7 congregations, 1 is in downtown New York. I don't know if a congregation looking at this or excuse me, a minister looking at this congregation would also be looking at New York. Maybe they're a competition for you, I don't know. There are a couple of congregations in those 8 that are over the 200 member mark. That's probably a different minister than ministers that would be looking for you. So I think that there are 4 congregations, one in Dorchester, Massachusetts, Milford, New Hampshire, Rochester, New York, and Croton, that are all kind of going to attract similar candidates. That's okay. They can all come out and do all their interviews the same area. Usually, there are around 40 congregations in search on any given year. So at 29 right now, that feels a little small to me. I am assuming that number might increase over the next couple of weeks. And usually, there are over 50, let's say, sometimes up to 70 ministers looking to find jobs in those 29 to 50 congregations. Okay. As a congregation, your voice really matters in this search process. And the first time your voice is really going to matter is coming up soon, because you as a congregation will approve a slate of candidates that will become your search committee. 7 people from the congregation who are going to take this search for the next year and a half and run with it. And I will be in touch with them all the time. I've been working with your board here the last couple of 2 or 3 meetings, and once the search committee is formed, I will be then transferring my connections mostly to the search committee. They're a congregation voted, congregation selected committee, therefore they have as much power as the board. They're not a committee that was appointed by the board, so don't worry about that. It's just what it is. You're voting on them. It's not something that the board's appointing. So what's going to happen in the next couple of days, the board's going to get a bunch of information out about what makes up a good search committee member. Traits, characteristics that make up a good committee member. And they're going to start then calling you on the 19th of March, 8 days from now. They're going to start calling every one of you and ask you to please give them the name of the 3 people that you most trust to be on the search committee to find your next minister. How many people are they going to ask you for?
3.
3 names. When's that going to start?
19.
Okay, so they're going to call you and talk to you about this. Please be thinking about this. It's a little bit different than thinking about church in general. You're thinking about people who are responsible, can be confidential, have a view of the whole church, have a view of the church now and in the future. One of the ways the UUA puts it, and I think is actually pretty good, is that they're senators for your congregation, meaning that they speak for the congregation and they know what's going on in the congregation. So think about who you think those people will be. The board's going to get that list all together by their next board meeting on the 28th. The calls are going to end the 27th, and they're going to pull together a list and create a slate of the search committee members, which you will then vote on the 15th of April. Yes?
Are there any exclusions to who can be on this committee?
Staff and current board members.
Cannot be.
Absolutely not.
But you don't have to be a member?
You have to be a member of the
Okay,
congregation.
Well, that's an exclusion too.
Is
Yes,
it straight up and down slate?
yes,
That's what I was going to ask. 7 candidates on the slate.
yes.
Oh.
Because you're giving them the names and they're doing all the behind the scenes work. You know, these are the people we most trust, and the board is now called those people to find out if they're willing to serve. All of that work has been done. Yes.
And if on the committee, does everybody have an equal role, or is there a chair?
There's a chair usually. You know, it needs organization. So yeah, there's a chair, there's a secretary, there are lots of different positions. Somebody needs to find neutral pulpit locations and restaurants and hotels. Somebody needs to create the marketing material. Somebody needs to create a biography of the congregation. There are lots of different jobs. Yes,
May current board members step down from the board if they want to serve on this?
yeah, yes, they can.
So you can put anyone on this list. Should you, when we're asked for 3 names, should we say no board members in our head, or should we not?
So
The board members that are going off board, who is that?
2 people, Susan Cuccinello and Eddie Reed are going off the board.
But a current board member can step down from the board to serve, or should we not include that?
You know, that's a decision that the board has to make. You need to keep this, the congregation needs to stay strong. I would recommend that the board members that are on for an elected period of time stay on the board. Yes, Jim?
On the list, all the non-eligible board members are crossed off.
Yeah. So there's a piece of paper at the back of the church that you can pick up when you go out that has a list of all the members and some interesting points like that. Who's eligible on the board and not. Yes?
So if something like 15 names get recommended, is there a process by which the board then narrows it down to the 7, or all 15 would be put on the slate for everyone to vote on just 7?
No.
Huh?
No, the board will look at the number of votes. In Westport, we had, you know, some people getting 20 votes each, that 20, 15, 10, and then we had 3 pages of people that got 1 vote apiece. So the board is going to look at the most people that have been recommended by you, the people that have been recommended by you the most, I should say, and they're going to contact those people and find out who can do it. It's a big commitment. And so they'll be doing all of that work in the background before you say, yes, this is a good slate. Yes?
And are you going to talk more about how much time is required in terms of commitment?
Yes,
So people know, yeah, you will.
I will, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a great question.
So the board then takes these recommendations and creates a slate of candidates.
Exactly.
And the slate of candidates is for 7 positions.
Yes.
What typically is the number of candidates?
7.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
If there's 7 positions, you're voting?
You're voting up or down on the slate that they're presenting of 7 people.
So you're not voting, it's not like a preferential
No.
ballot?
And doing that on the phone calls when when they're calling you up and asking for your 3 names.
Right, that's how you're putting your vote.
That's how you're putting your vote in.
Okay.
Yeah,
A little later.
yeah.
Okay.
Michael, could you
Yeah, maybe you can give us more information about what would make a good member of the search committee, what characteristics?
A good search committee member, as I said earlier, is somebody who sees clearly and without personal agenda who the congregation is now and where it's going to go in the future. They are organized, They respect confidentiality. They are great team workers. They want to lead the congregation forward into its next generation, basically. People with specific agendas for how they want it to go, that's not such a great idea.
They have to have the time to do it.
Yes, okay. Yes, time is a big issue. But that's for the candidate themselves to decide, right? Time is a big issue. I won't say that this isn't a big job. It's going to start for them in May, when I come and do a full 2 days of workshop with them, giving them all of the parameters of the search, helping them figure out within their 7 people who has what roles, and we talk about the entire 18 months. Then why don't I just go through what the calendar is for the search, and you can then understand what the search committee member is going to need to do. So that's May. Everybody, when's your last? Oh, you have Barry Finkelstein coming in June. That's an important, very important congregational meeting for you to have to talk about finances and planning. Barry, by the way, I know very well because his wife Roberta was our interim minister. So I hung out with Barry and Roberta for a couple of years. I was actually the one that brought Roberta to the church, and then I was the head of her transition team until I moved to be head of the search committee for the next thing. So anyway, I'm probably not going to come for that June meeting, but say hi to Barry for me. It would be nice to see him. Okay, so then everybody goes away for the summer. Really, I mean, what's your attendance in the summer? Is it good?
20 to 25 per Sunday.
Yeah, okay. So there's not what I'm saying is there's the communication between everybody in the congregation is diminished during summertime. But coming back in the fall, your search committee is going to be working all summer to get a couple of things. Let me clarify something. They don't have to do what I'm suggesting they do. They can say no. I don't want to do the survey. I don't want to put our congregation through that. Or they can say, I don't think we need to have any focus groups, or what the UUA has created is a template that works. And that's what I'm going to be providing the search committee, is a template that works. They can say, yes, we're going to do that, and no, we're not going to do that. So what I'm going to talk about today is the template. Whether or not your search committee decides to do all or just parts of it is up to you. I can tell you that the congregations that work from the template are successful. Otherwise, we would have revised it, right? So when you come back in the fall, the search committee will have created a survey, most likely, a survey for you to be participating in that talks about everything from your number of people in your family, your education, the religion that you were based on or grew up in as a child, how you see yourself now, what you want in the next minister, it's a lot. Why? Because we're trying to create a biography of the congregation, which is called the Congregational Record, or CR. And for Westport, that CR was 50 pages long. So this information tells the prospective ministers who you are. 15% of the congregation sees themselves as Buddhist. That's a very interesting statistic for a minister to look at. You know, 80% of the congregation has college education. That's an interesting thing for the minister to look at too. 50% of the congregation comes with children. That's a huge thing for a minister to look at when they're thinking about what their job is going to look like here. So the survey is going to be important, and you had a question. Do you still have? Yeah. Oh, you're raising your hand earlier. Okay, so that's going to be in the fall, and the search committee has worked all summer long getting that together. I have templates for surveys that they can modify however they want. They don't have to recreate any wheels here. We have good templates that they can work from. And also in the fall, they're probably going to be having focus meetings with you. Those focus meetings are very directed questions for conversation about what they've found out in terms of information over the prior 3 or 4 months, and what question they still think needs to be answered before they can really finish this CR, really present it as your personality. So those focus groups will be directed questions, 6 to 8 people at a time usually, and happening in September and October. After that, the search committee is going to take all that information, plus they're going to take your church finances. They're going to write up your church history. They're going to write up a list of all of the ministers that have been here and why they're not here anymore. They're going to put together information about the area around here. They're going to say what the vision of the congregation is. It's a big document, and it's going to be completed by mid-November. Yes.
I don't know if this is a politically correct question or not.
Yeah.
But is LBGT profiling part of the survey?
Profiling.
Well, I'm just indication to the incoming minister what the sexual preferences of the community as a whole are.
Yes, I think absolutely. Yeah, there was a question in ours that, you know, your congregation, the search committee knows you guys. You put them there because you trust them. They're going to ask questions that get to the heart of who you are, right? That's all what that's about. And so, yes, those questions are valuable. Also, yes.
Yeah, will the committee be able to use the CR that was developed from the last minister search as a resource? Certainly as a resource.
I'm sure it needs to be updated, not only in terms of data points, but perhaps vision has changed.
What was the CR?
The congregational record, this biography that I'm talking about. Yes, I think they should look at it. I would think that, you know, the whole section on history could be used again, right?
Save them or...
Save them, absolutely. Yeah. The other thing they're going to be creating during this time, and based off, they're going to be doing interviews with the staff. They're taking all this information, and they're also creating what, in kind of old-time terms, was called a packet, because it actually used to be bound and mailed around. But now it's a website, and so they're going to be creating a website that is your marketing piece. And it's going to have all sorts of pictures of the congregation, so great pictures of the congregation. Make sure they get to the search committee. Pictures of the congregation. It's going to have more information on the area around here, what it's like to live around here. We have separate sections on all of the towns around Westport, and, you know, churches and museums and community interesting things, national parks, state parks, whatever like that. It's going to have some kind of focus, and a lot of times that focus comes out of these words. We set up all of our packet based on Inspire, Connect, and ACT, and that gave us sort of the way to organize the packet. So that's what they're going to be doing. It's due mid-November. I have to approve it. And the reason I'm approving it is just to make sure that I don't think you are understating a strength or overstating a weakness. That's what I'm looking for. I want to make sure that it's balanced, that you're not leaving something glaring out, you know, ooh, gosh. And so, but I want to have Thanksgiving off. The search committee wants to have Thanksgiving off. So we'll be done for sure by Thanksgiving on those two products. They both go to the UUA online, and in December, the ministers that are in search can have access to all of the congregation's material, all, however many, 29, 50 of them. And they read through all the, you know, the CRs, and they look at all of the packets, and they get back to the UUA, and they say, I'm interested in these 5, I'm interested in these 15. I really want to talk to these congregations. January 2nd, your search committee is going to get the names of the ministers that are interested in them. And then it gets a little crazy for about 3 weeks. Let's say you get 20 applications. The search committee needs to go through all 20 of those applications, you know, discarding the ones that they don't feel are appropriate. Maybe the person just doesn't have enough experience for you. Maybe they have way too much experience for you. You know, whatever the case, when you're looking at 20 applications for minister, it can be very clear that some of them wouldn't work. They're not a fit for you. So they'll be talking to those ministers saying thank you, but no thank you, whittling the list down. Skype calls, you would whittle it down to maybe 8 that the search committee would then do Skype calls with. We actually spent an hour and a half on each Skype call with each minister that we spoke with. Then after those, you have more information, you whittle the list down further till the end of the 3rd week in January. You should have the 3 or 4 pre-candidates that you're the search committee. I'm talking to you because it's easier that way. That you want to come, and the search committee will decide how many pre-candidates they want to have come ahead of time. So that's the number that they're, you know, moving toward. And by the end of January, you know who those 3 people are. The search committee has already set up neutral pulpit dates in February and March. And then they try to fit those 3 people into the 3 dates that they have. Doesn't always work.
Not sure everybody knows what a neutral pulpit is.
Neutral pulpit is when the minister speaks at another congregation, generally at least 45 minutes away from the congregation that they're applying to. It helps if the congregation is sort of similar size. Why? Why can't they just come and talk here? Because there are 3 candidates. And if the congregation gets attached at that point to any of the specific minister, let's say they just came to one of the neutral pulpit services, and they really liked that candidate, but based on all of the information that the search committee has and the other 2 or 3 candidates, that's not the right person, but you know, you get all invested in them and it's just not the right thing. So they speak in a neutral pulpit. The search committee spends the entire weekend on those pre-candidating weekends from Friday night till Sunday afternoon with that candidate. In February and March, those three or four weekends are happening. And then by the end of March, early April, they will be making an offer to one candidate.
Are these neutral pulpits secret sermons, or are we invited to?
You are not invited. The search committee will go.
The search committee only?
Yes, you will not know about them.
Better not know about it.
You will not know about them. Yes.
I might have missed something, but how do we know at some point about the profiles of those ministers who are looking, to become candidates? So we submit something about us, the CR.
Uh-huh.
What is the ministers put together?
The ministers are making an MR.
An MR.
A ministerial record, right? They make an MR that will come along with their application to the search committee in early January. It's that, the congregation will not see any of that.
And what kind of information is in that about each minister? What do they?
It's at least 50 pages long, just like the congregational record.
Yeah.
And one of the first questions is, basically your life story, including, all major turning points in your life and every ministry you've done and learned from it, and how you work with staff, how you work with the board, you name it. What else is in there? No, the sample sermons in the record. That goes in the packet. You can use it.
But the search committee will be looking at it, absolutely. In January, they'll be looking, I can't tell you how many sermons I listened to in January. 30 or 40 sermons. Yeah, it's really important that you see the person live. It's nice to be able to hear them. Used to be, couldn't do that, right? So that's really a nice thing. Was that a full answer to that question? I'm going to keep talking. Hopefully, if it's not still answered, let me know. Yes?
Can we suggest the name of the minister to the search committee?
You can suggest a name of a minister to the search committee, but that minister has to go through the whole process through the UUA. A church should not consider a minister who just slides their name under the doormat. That's not going to